So, good evening to all of you. And this will be our final session of this course, Discovering Buddhism, Module 2, How to Meditate. And so I thought that for the meditation we'll do this evening, that we'll do a meditation, a visualization practice, meditating on the Buddha. So I did introduce the practice of visualization just briefly at the end of the last session, which was 2 weeks ago. And we did a little bit of a kind of really simple visualization practice, visualizing a ball of light above our head and then bringing that down into us and merging with the light, thinking that it represents all positive qualities. And so I composed that meditation. Get the microphone closer. I composed that meditation based on a traditional practice that's used a lot in Tibetan Buddhism, where you visualize various Buddha figures like Shakyamuni Buddha or Chenrezig, Tara, and so forth. There's many different, sometimes they're called deities, meditational deities, and they are different manifestations of enlightened mind, Buddha's mind, appearing in these different forms. And so within Tibetan Buddhism, there are practices where we visualize these deities, usually one at a time, and do various prayers in relation to them. And then we imagine at the end of the practice, we imagine them dissolving into us and our mind becoming one with their mind, having the same qualities, knowledge, realization that they have. So it's a practice that helps us get in touch with our Buddha nature. Buddhism says we all have Buddha nature. We all have the potential to transform ourselves completely in the sense of freeing our mind from the negative, disturbing attitudes like anger, hatred, greed, selfishness, jealousy, and so forth, and ignorance. So all the disturbing aspects of the mind are not permanent parts of us. They are transitory and they can be removed, they can be purified. And we also have within our mind all these positive qualities: love, compassion, joy, equanimity, generosity, wisdom. So there's a lot of positive qualities that are there in our mind, and they can be cultivated, developed more and more and more, and eventually perfected. And so that's how it's possible for us to transform ourselves and become enlightened. But often we have difficulty believing in that, believing in our potential. We tend to, I don't know, maybe not everyone's like this, but many of us tend to identify ourselves with our faults and our shortcomings and our mistakes and imperfections. And we tend to feel that's me. I am all those faults. And even if we hear about this potential that we have to transform and become enlightened, it's it's sometimes hard to believe that that is true, that that really is possible. And so the practice of visualizing Buddha images and then merging with them and imagining our mind getting transformed and becoming just like the Buddha's mind is to, nourish our potential and overcome low self-esteem and this belief that I can't do it. I can't become like the Buddha. I could never become like the Buddha. So, yeah, so that's one way that visualization is used in Tibetan Buddhism. And we'll do a little bit of that tonight. Sorry. But the practice of visualization, it can be used in other ways as well for other reasons. Um, so, for example, when we meditate on love, generating loving kindness or compassion, these sort of positive qualities that we're trying to grow in ourselves, then it's really helpful to visualize specific people towards whom we are generating these feelings. So if we imagine people and other beings in front of us and around us, and then we generate these feelings of wanting them to be happy, wanting them to be free of suffering, and so on, then it just makes the practice more powerful, more effective, rather than just kind of intellectually thinking about love and compassion. Um, and what else? Yeah, that those are just some of the ways in which visualization is used in Tibetan Buddhism. But I think it's also found in other traditions of Buddhism. I don't know so much about Zen. I'm not sure if they use visualization practice, but I think in Tibet, in Theravada Buddhism, like the type of Buddhism found in Southeast Asia, Thailand, Burma, and so on. I think some of their practices would involve visualization. For example, there's a practice that the Buddha taught, particularly for monastics, to overcome their attachment. And one of our main, probably the main attachment that we have is to bodies. Like we're attached to our own bodies and we're attached to the bodies of others. And that can lead to sexual desire. And yeah, so that's a hindrance in our practice. So to overcome that kind of attachment and desire, the Buddha recommended meditating on the parts of the body. So it's very effective to use visualization with this to actually, contemplate what the body is made of, especially in the internal parts of the body, the bones, the blood, the organs, and so on. And yeah, try to get a real clear mental image of these parts of the body that we normally can't see. We just see the outside. We see the skin and hair and so on, but we don't see these inner parts of the body. So visualizing the inner parts of the body is really helpful for overcoming attachment to the body, which exaggerates the attractiveness of the body and overlooks the unattractive aspects of it. And likewise, visualizing skeletons. There's a whole practice to visualize skeletons and even use that kind of visualization to cultivate concentration. And yeah, so I think in Theravada Buddhism, visualization is also used. Um, And what I think I could be wrong about this, but I think everyone does have the ability to visualize. It's like a natural ability that we have. It's something that happens anyway without even trying, that our mind thinks in pictures. We remember things from the past, and often those memories are connected with images, mental images of people and places and things that we saw and so on. Um, some people probably use visualization more than others. For example, artists, architects, people who work with visual arts, they can visualize something that they're planning to build or create. And so they probably have very good skills of visualization. But I think that everyone does have this ability to a certain extent. And so we're tapping into that natural ability and then using it to in our meditation practice. And I've heard too that in the West, uh, it's probably in recent years, recent decades, people sometimes use visualization in various areas, aspects of life, like sports or business people, um, people who have a certain goal that they want to achieve or skill that they want to develop. They practice visualizing themselves doing, whatever, hitting the ball with the bat, uh, or yeah, whatever kind of sport they're playing, or business goals, and so on. And also, it can be used to relax when people are feeling stressed and tense. They can imagine themselves being in a really calm and peaceful, beautiful place, and that can be very helpful to relieve stress. So yeah, it's become kind of a relatively common known practice in the West for various reasons. Um, and I've heard too, I haven't really studied neuroscience, but I've heard that they say that when we visualize ourselves doing something, and even if we're not actually doing it, but we're just visualizing, imagining ourselves doing that, it works the same in the brain. The brain, you know, uh, reacts in the same way. So playing the piano, for example, if you visualize yourself playing the piano, then according to the brain, then it reacts in the same way as if you're actually playing. I don't know. So it can, I guess the point is it can be a very powerful way of training ourselves, developing certain skills. And so I know for some people, including myself, it doesn't come easily. I've always had difficulty visualizing, but I do find that the more I do it, the more I practice it, the easier it gets. And so, yeah, just and by way of advice, if you do find it difficult to visualize, don't worry. Don't think there's something wrong with you. It could be that you just simply haven't trained that particular ability in yourself. But if you do continue to practice and train, then it does get easier. And so what we're going to do, we'll follow the usual procedure, sit and settle down our body and mind, generate a positive motivation, then do the actual meditation, and this will be visualizing the Buddha. So I will describe the visualization of the Buddha, and then you just do the best you can to visualize the Buddha. And this visualization of the Buddha is used in different contexts. For example, in certain practices, for when we take refuge or do various prayers and practices, we're often advised to visualize the Buddha in front of us and then direct our prayers to the Buddha. But also, the teachers in our tradition recommend that when it comes to developing calm abiding, shamatha, training the mind to concentrate, then using an image of the Buddha is particularly good for various reasons. Because anytime we think of the Buddha, visualize the Buddha, then it leaves positive imprints on our mind, makes our mind more familiar with the Buddha and his qualities. And that's, it's virtuous and really helps our mind to get closer to the Buddha, to get closer to those qualities. And another benefit is that when it comes to the end of our life and we're dying, if we have practiced visualizing the Buddha, it will be easy at that time to think of the Buddha and have a mental image, picture of the Buddha as we are dying, which would be a really good state of mind to be in as we end this life. So, yeah, so those are some of the benefits of this practice. Okay, so let's start by getting into a comfortable position for meditation. So that depends on you, whatever is most comfortable for you. If you can sit cross-legged, that's really good. Have your legs crossed in whatever way is most comfortable for you. And then if you're sitting on a chair, then have your feet flat on the floor. And either way, sitting on a chair or sitting cross-legged, try to keep your back straight. But that doesn't mean being stiff, being tight, tense. So we keep our back straight, but at the same time, let our body be as relaxed as possible. Don't let any tension there may be in your body melt and flow away. Let your breathing be natural, a natural, steady rhythm flowing in and out without you controlling it, manipulating it, just allowing the body to breathe. And check your mind to see if there are any thoughts running around in your mind that are not related to what we are doing here. You might be still thinking about something that happened to you today or something you need to do later tonight, tomorrow. So any thoughts of the past or of the future, just put those aside for now so that you can keep your mind, your attention focused on this practice and being in the present right here, right now. And let's generate a positive motivation. If you're comfortable with the motivation of bodhicitta, aspiring to reach enlightenment, to become a Buddha, the benefit of all living beings, then you can generate that, bring that into your mind as your reason for being here, doing this meditation, joining this course. And if you're not so familiar with bodhicitta or not sure if that really is what you aspire for, try to generate some altruistic attitude, caring about others, wanting to be of benefit to others, wanting to help them have less suffering and confusion and more happiness and peace. So if that makes sense, if that feels right, you can bring that into your mind. Think that you're here doing this meditation and being here in this session so that you can learn how to be more helpful to others, to other people, other beings, and to the world. Okay, so I will describe the visualization and do the best you can to create it. When we visualize, we are using our mind and not our eyes. So your eyes should remain relaxed, closed, or nearly closed. And then you just use your mind to create, to compose this visualization. So we visualize the Buddha in the space in front of us at about the level of our forehead and a few feet away. And every aspect of the visualization is made of light. So that means it's not solid like our bodies and tables and computers and so on, but just pure transparent light. So a good analogy is a rainbow. When we see a rainbow in the sky, it can appear very bright and even almost solid, but we know it's not. It's just transparent, just light. So that's how we should visualize the Buddha, made of light, transparent. So the Buddha is sitting on a seat that consists of a lotus, a large white lotus with the petals open and spread out flat. And on top of the lotus are two discs of light, round and again just made of light. And one represents the sun and one represents the moon. And the lotus, the sun, and the moon actually represent the three main realizations that the Buddha has attained. The lotus is renunciation, total non-attachment to anything in samsara. The sun is wisdom, understanding the true nature of all things. And the moon is bodhicitta, compassion and love for all living beings and being completely dedicated to helping all living beings. So by sitting on these three objects, that means the Buddha has those qualities in his mind. He has accomplished those realizations in his mind. And so the Buddha is sitting with his legs in the full lotus position and wearing the robes of a monk, saffron-colored robes. And his body is made of golden light, so very bright and pure, like pure polished gold. But again, actually just light with the color of gold. And his right hand is resting on his right knee with the palm on his knee and the fingers pointing downwards and touching the seat beneath him. This is called the earth touching gesture. And his other hand, his left hand, is in his lap with the palm facing upwards. And resting in the palm of that hand is a bowl, an alms bowl like monks use to collect their food for their daily meal. And within the bowl is nectar, medicinal healing nectar that cures our suffering and the causes of our suffering, the mental afflictions of greed, hatred, ignorance, and so on. And the Buddha's face is peaceful, smiling, but at the same time looking totally composed. His mind is always in a state of meditation, focused on the true nature of all things, seeing everything that exists and knowing how it really exists, how it's empty of inherent existence. So his mind is always calm, composed, peaceful. But he's smiling with an expression of love and compassion for all living beings. That includes each one of us. So it can be helpful to imagine that the Buddha is looking right at you with this very loving and compassionate expression on his face. Feel that the Buddha doesn't have even the slightest bit of annoyance or irritation or judgmentalness. So even though the Buddha can see everything in our mind, he can see all our thoughts, he can see everything we've ever done, all the mistakes we've made, but there's no judgmentalness. Yeah, he doesn't judge us. He doesn't feel any anger or irritation. Only love, compassion, forgiveness, and complete dedication to helping us to become free of all our problems, our suffering, our delusions, our mistakes, and so on, and helping us develop our potential, our positive qualities, and will never abandon us, but will always be there helping us until we become just like the Buddha. We have attained the same knowledge and qualities and realizations that the Buddha has. So that's a rough description of the visualization of the Buddha. Just do the best you can to have this mental image, this mental picture of the Buddha there in the space in front of you. And don't worry if you can't visualize all the details, or if it's not clear, or if it kind of comes and goes. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. So just be satisfied with whatever you're able to visualize, even if it's just a rough shape. The important thing is to feel the presence of the Buddha. The Buddha really is there in the space in front of you with all these wonderful, beautiful qualities in his mind and his energy. Try to feel as if you're actually sitting in the presence of the Buddha, someone who has attained full enlightenment and has perfected all excellent qualities and is free of all faults, all negative qualities, all mistakes. Now, just keep your mind focused on this image of the Buddha in front of you and try not to let your attention wander elsewhere. So even if other thoughts pop up in your mind or you hear sounds, so anything else that could possibly distract your attention away from the image of the Buddha. Just do your best to not let that happen, not be distracted. And even if it happens, even if you do get distracted away, bring your attention back to the visualization of the Buddha in front of you. So now make a prayer or request from your heart to the Buddha using your own thoughts, your own words, asking the Buddha for help in your practice, in your spiritual life. So you can think whatever is upmost, forefront in your mind that you would like to ask the Buddha to help you with. So form those thoughts, those words in your mind, and make that request to the Buddha. And then imagine that in response to your request, light flows from the Buddha. You can imagine streams of light coming from the Buddha's heart, from his whole body. And these rays of light enter you. They can come in through the top of your head or through all the pores of your body. Imagine your body becoming filled with this light down to the tiniest particles of your body, cells, molecules, atoms, and so on. And imagine the light purifying your negative karma, your afflictions or delusions, all the negative aspects of your body and mind. These get completely purified. They just vanish, become non-existent. And the light also nourishes your positive qualities, your love, compassion, wisdom, and whatever other positive qualities you might feel short of and would like to increase, have more of. Imagine that happening. Then imagine the Buddha coming to the space above your head, turning to face the same direction that you're facing. And then melting into light, becoming just pure light, like liquid light, which then flows down through the top of your head into your body. And mainly it comes to your heart chakra in the center of your chest. This is where the mind is based, like the seat of our mind. The headquarters of our mind is there in our heart chakra. And imagine your mind and the Buddha's mind merging, coming of one taste, one nature, such that you have the same experiences, knowledge, qualities, and realizations that the Buddha has. And if you notice any resistance to that, you can say to yourself that I have the potential to become just like the Buddha. One day in the future, I will have the same realizations and qualities that the Buddha has. So right now, I'm just getting a taste of that. So now let's dedicate the positive energy that we've created by doing this meditation, that it will help ourselves and everyone else, all other beings, get closer to the state of enlightenment, being free of all that is negative, all that causes suffering, and being fully developed in all that is positive, all that brings peace and happiness. Okay, so that's kind of the simplified version of a practice that's found in Tibetan Buddhism, and there's a great variety of such practices related to different Buddha images, like not just Shakyamuni Buddha, but also Medicine Buddha, Tara, Avalokiteshvara, the embodiment of compassion, and so on. There's many, many different deities who are all enlightened beings in different forms. And yeah, so it's Tibetan Buddhism is very rich in these kind of practices. So this was just a really simple version of such practices to help you get an idea of that. Any questions before I go on? Actually, there's one thing I would like to ask, because just now, while I was leading the meditation, the computer that I'm using, the fan went off and it was kind of going on and off. And I just wondered if you could hear it. Were you able to hear the fan? You didn't hear it. Okay, it was really loud here. And I was worried that it might be coming through the microphone. Okay, well, that's good. That's good. So there was one more thing that I had planned to talk about actually a couple of weeks ago and then didn't get around to it. So I thought I'd do it tonight. And it's these 6 factors that cause delusions or afflictions to, I think it should be the previous page. There's another slide before this one. Yeah, there we go. 6 factors that cause afflictions to arise. So this may help you understand why it is that even though we don't want to have anger, we don't want to have jealousy, we don't want to have desire, attachment coming up in our mind, they pop up without any choice. Can we go back to the previous page, the 6 factors? Yeah. Um, so this is actually found in Lama Tsongkhapa's Lamrim text. But there's also, down at the bottom of this slide, there's a reference, if you're interested. Lama Yeshe gave a talk on this many years ago, and it's included in a book called Wisdom Energy, which is actually, I think, the very first book ever published by Wisdom Publications, and it's still available. So within that book, there's a selection of different articles that were all talks given by Lama Yeshe Lama Zopa. So one of those is called How Delusions Arise. So in there, he explains these 6 factors. And I remember when I came across this, I found it really, really useful. And so it helps us understand, what are the causes and conditions for these delusions or afflictions to come up in our mind, even though we don't want them to be there. And there are some of them, some of these 6 factors are things we can work with, we can manage, we can, yeah, try to reduce. So if we can reduce the conditions, the causes and conditions for delusions to arise, then there's less chance that they would arise in the first place. Okay, so the first, and this is helpful both for meditation but also for our daily life. I remember in one retreat that I was doing a solitary retreat, and something occurred to me, which in a way it was like really obvious, but it just hadn't occurred to me before. So it was kind of like a little light bulb going off in my head. And so that was that whatever problems I have in my meditation, when I'm trying to meditate and I encounter problems or difficulties, they are also problems that I have in my life. They're not exclusive to meditation, but they are also there in my life, in my relationships and my activities and so on and so forth, in my mind. Okay. And and so it's just that when we're meditating, we become more sensitive so that we notice things more than we do in our daily life. Because in our daily life, we tend to be very busy and our attention is directed outwards to other people and things happening around us. And so we're less aware of what's happening in our own mind. But when we're meditating, then we're trying to turn our attention inwards and we naturally become more aware of what's happening in our mind. And so, yeah, if we notice irritation, if we notice attachment, if we notice self-hatred, self-criticalness, whatever, boredom, restlessness, okay, whatever kind of problems occur in our meditation, they are probably, this is for you to check and see if it's true or not, but they are probably things that are there in the rest of our life at other times as well, but we just may not notice them. Right? And so I think that's really helpful because, for one thing, people might sometimes find it really difficult to meditate because all this stuff is happening inside, and they may think, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. It's just making my mind disturbed and crazy. And so they may think, if I stop meditating, then these problems won't be there anymore. But that's probably not the case because those problems will still be there whether you're meditating or not. They're just a natural part of your mind. Um, and that's really the purpose of meditation. The purpose of meditation is to work on our mind and bring about a transformation of our mind and learn to overcome the disturbing aspects, the afflictions, the delusions, and increase the positive aspects, the good aspects. That we have to be able to see what's going on in our mind so that we know what we have to work on. If we don't see those things in ourselves, we don't know what we have to work on, what kind of work we have to do. So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is, yeah, meditation makes us more aware of our afflictions, our delusions, but they're there anyway, whether we meditate or not. So don't think that, yeah, if you stop meditating, those afflictions won't be there anymore. That isn't the case. So anyway, these 6 factors are helpful for working with afflictions. So the first is imprints, or sometimes they're also called seeds, that are left in the mind by previous afflictions. So in the past, even just in this lifetime, we have gotten angry a lot. We have had attachment. We have had jealousy. We have had boredom. We have had every possible affliction that there is. We've experienced it before in this lifetime. And when when we do have an affliction happening in our mind, it may be there only for a few seconds or a few minutes or maybe longer, but it passes. It eventually goes away. However, it leaves seeds. There's a seed or an imprint left in our mind by that affliction. And then that seed is the cause for that same affliction to arise again in the future. So I think of it like in nature. Plants and trees, flowers, and so forth. Most of them, if not all of them, grow from seeds. They all grow from seeds. And then when they grow, they produce more seeds. And when those seeds land on the ground and they are watered and so on, then again, they produce more of the same type of tree or plant, whatever. Okay, so just as that happens in nature, it also happens in our mind. If I get angry today, my anger will eventually pass, but a seed of that anger is left in my mind. And then that seed is there waiting to be watered, to be nourished. And then another experience of anger will come up. So we have within our mind seeds of all these afflictions left from the past. Then that's the main cause. The main cause for afflictions to arise in our mind are these seeds in our mind. That's really important to understand because, we sometimes think other people make us have afflictions. They make us angry. They make us have attachment or jealousy. And that isn't the case. Nobody else makes us have these afflictions. They happen in our mind because of these seeds left from the past. And then you may ask, well, where do those seeds come? Where's the first seed? That's a bit like the chicken and the egg. Yeah, we can't really the Buddha said we can't really find a beginning to our mind and a beginning to the afflictions in our mind. So yeah, we can't really pinpoint that. But there is an end. Even though there's no beginning, there is an end. It is possible to eliminate all the seeds of afflictions and eliminate all the afflictions. So they can be brought to an end. But anyway, that's one of the factors, is the seed in our mind. And the second one are objects. And so whenever we have anger or attachment or jealousy or any of the afflictions, they're always in relation to some object. And the object could be a person, human being, or an animal, or it could be something inanimate, an inanimate object, a car, a computer. It could also be something abstract, ideas, experiences. Okay, so there's lots of different possible objects, but there's always an object. Anytime we have anger, anytime we have attachment, anytime we have any of the afflictions, they are always in relation to a particular object. And the object could be something that we perceive. It could be something right in front of us, present with us, or it could also be mental, like we remember things from the past, or we imagine, we fantasize things. And then those things that we fantasize, that we create with our mind, can trigger our anger or trigger our attachment, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So this is something we can work with, because if we do want to work on decreasing our anger and our attachment and so on, and we notice there's specific people or objects that we always get angry at or we always have attachment for, then we can be careful and try to not be around that object so much, not think about that object so much, until we get to the point where we can really manage our mind and be in the presence of that object and not get angry. But until then, it's better to try to just, yeah, avoid. Like, for example, I have a couple of brothers who were alcoholics, and they stopped drinking now, but they say that, yeah, they just have to avoid being around alcohol, around people who are drinking, because, it's possible that just seeing alcohol, seeing people drinking can trigger that desire, and they could find themselves getting back into that old habit. Yeah, so it's similar. If we really want to reduce the afflictions in our mind, we have to be careful about what kind of objects we uh, look at and associate with, and so on. Um, then number three is influences from other people. Shouldn't be others, other people, influences from other people. Um, so what this means is we are easily influenced by the people we associate with. Have you ever noticed that if you're with somebody who's angry and they're, showing their anger, expressing their anger, obviously angry, that you start to feel angry too? Yeah. Or likewise with attachment. Yeah. If somebody is um, having a lot of attachment and they're talking about it and obviously, acting in a way that shows their attachment, then that can influence you as well. You start feeling that attachment, that desire. So, so it's like that old expression, monkey see, monkey do. Yeah, we're very easily influenced by other people that we associate with, that we hang around, that we spend time with and get close to, and so on. And so if you want to work on decreasing afflictions, then it's best to be careful uh, around people who have, not everyone is trying to be that way. Some people are just the opposite, they're not trying to work on their anger at all. They may be even, you know, increasing their anger, enjoying their anger, letting themselves get angry. And yeah, so if you don't want to be like that, but you want to be more calm and peaceful and patient, then it's better not to be so close to people who are like that. And even if you are around people who are acting out their afflictions, then just be really, really careful. Just watch your own mind and try your best not to let your mind be influenced in a negative way. And this is why they say when we are following a spiritual path, it's really important to stay close to people who are spiritual friends, like teachers who have been working on their mind for a long time and their minds are very subdued. They have a lot of patience and kindness and so on. And so teachers as well as fellow practitioners. So if we can try to spend more time with people like that, then we'll be influenced in a positive way. We'll find ourselves becoming more like that as well. So this is probably something you can see in your own experience. And so if that's what you recognize, then yeah, do try to um, be closer to people who can have a positive influence on you, and be careful with those who have a negative influence. And then number 4 is false teachings. This is the traditional way that it's explained. Because yeah, so there's all different kinds of teachers, um, spiritual teachers, religious teachers, teachers of philosophy, and so on, who are explaining things, explaining their own views about how things are. And some of these might be contrary to the Buddhist view. If you're attracted to Buddhism and the Buddhist view of things, and you want to follow this path, then if we listen to people who explain things in the opposite way, like saying there's no such thing as rebirth, there's no such thing as mind or consciousness, there's no such thing as karma. So if we listen to teachings like that or lectures like that, then we might be influenced and, start think, well, yeah, that's probably true. And those kind of views, if we hold them, they're detrimental to our path, our practice in Buddhism. Because if you really believe there's only this life and no other life after this one, and no such thing as enlightenment, no such thing as nirvana, higher states of being that we can achieve, then you might think, well, then why work on my mind? Why work on improving my mind and overcoming afflictions? I can just be however I want to be. Let myself be angry, let myself have attachment, and so on and so forth. So that's just an example of the kind of thing we need to be careful about. Ideas, beliefs, views that would be detrimental to what we're trying to do on this path. And yeah, take us in a different direction. So this one, number 4, it could be lectures, but it could be other things as well, because nowadays there's so many sources of information. We have the news, we have internet, social media, TV, movies, books, magazines, and so on and so forth. So there's so much information that we could open up to and take in, and some of that information could be harmful to our spiritual practice. It could make us confused. It could give us wrong ideas. I don't think I need to tell you this because you probably know very well, like conspiracy theories and so on. So yeah, included in this one, number 4, would be any kind of information from outside that increases our afflictions, makes us more angry, have more attachment, more selfishness, and so on and so forth. So any kind of information like that, we need to be careful about. And yeah, so just pay attention. And this also includes entertainment, like movies, music, TV shows, whatever it is you might turn to for entertainment. So those could have a detrimental effect on our mind and where we're trying to go with our mind, what we're trying to do with our mind. Okay, then number 5 is habit or familiarity. So whatever we make a habit of will arise more and more easily. So, for example, having the habit of eating certain types of foods or drinking certain types of drinks that we have a lot of liking for, a lot of attachment for. The more we do it, the more that becomes a habit, and the attachment becomes more and more kind of strong and fixed in our experience, or anger. Yeah, if we have a habit of getting angry at certain people or certain objects or certain situations, then the more we do that, the more we have that experience of anger or irritation or criticalness or whatever it is, then the more habitual that becomes. Okay, and then it becomes easier and easier to fall into that habit, more and more difficult to change it, to break it. So, but this is something that can be changed. So if we notice certain habits that our mind has, certain habitual thoughts, certain habitual emotions, certain habitual behaviors, and we feel, oh, this isn't helpful at all, we can see that this is detrimental, harmful for ourselves, for our practice, harmful for others, and so on, then we can make an effort to change those habits. And in fact, that's what meditation is all about. Um, I mentioned earlier the word for meditation in Tibetan literally means habituate or familiarize. So, what we're trying to do in meditation is develop new habits, good habits, positive habits, like keeping our mind concentrated, focused, rather than scattered, having positive feelings like love and compassion rather than anger and criticalness and so on. So the real purpose of meditation is like making our mind habituated to or familiar with more positive ways of thinking and feeling and being. And the more we do that, the more those will become our natural mode of being, our natural way of being, our kind of default mode. And we can defamiliarize ourselves with those negative habits, the things that we recognize are harmful, lead to problems and suffering. And then the sixth one, Lama Yeshe called it mistaken conceptualization. Um, you could also call it obsessive thinking. So this is when, let's say well, the example Lama Yeshe gave was being attracted to someone. Let's say you meet someone and you feel really attracted to that person, you fall in love with that person or whatever. And then you keep thinking about that person again and again and paying more and more attention to that person and different aspects of how they walk, how they talk, how they behave, how they do this, how they do that. So you're kind of building up more and more reasons for why you like that person, why you find that person attractive, why you want to be close to that person. And so what happens, they say with our afflictions, like whether it's attachment or aversion or whatever, we keep thinking again and again about the object, the person or the other object that we find either attractive or irritating. We keep thinking about it again and again and again, and often without any control. That's why I put obsessive thinking. It's almost like you're trying not to think about the person, but it just keeps coming up. Mind just keeps thinking, going back to that object and thinking in ways that just increase the affliction, increase the anger, increase the attachment. So you may have noticed this. If you haven't already noticed it, then look out for it, because I think I did talk about it earlier, or maybe that was in another course, an example of anger and how, if there's someone you take a dislike to, and then even when that person isn't around, that person may be far away, but you keep thinking about that person again and again, coming up with more reasons, more reasons to dislike that person, more faults that they have, and so on and so forth. And then your anger just builds up more and more. And the same with desire and attachment. When we have desire, attachment for a person or an object, again, we keep thinking about it again and again and again. And it's like coming up with more reasons why we like that person or that object, why we want to have them, to be close to them, to, enjoy them and so on. And so this is one of the main factors for afflictions. Yeah. It's this conceptualization, this obsessive thinking that goes on. And so again, this is something we can work on. It's not easy, but if we pay attention to our mind, we practice mindfulness, we watch our mind, and if we notice that our mind is spinning in that way, obsessing about an object of attachment or an object of aversion, and we can see that this is just increasing the affliction, just making our mind more disturbed, more afflicted, then we can say, no, stop. Stop that. That is not helpful. And do something else with your mind, something more positive, more constructive. So these are, yeah. Could we go back? Yeah. So these are 6 things that we that operate, that are part of our life, part of our mind, part of our experience, and and I think it's really useful to know about these because it explains, yeah, why and how anger arises or attachment arises in our mind. And then learning about these, we can start to work with them. We can start to make changes in our life, who we associate with, what information we pay attention to, what we do with our mind, and so forth. And then by working with these things, reducing these factors, we can reduce the afflictions coming up in our mind. Okay, so we're almost out of time, but I did have one more slide. We can go to that one now. um, the advice for regular practice. So this is our last class, so I just thought to mention a few things for those of you who do want to continue practicing meditation. Some of these things I probably mentioned before, but doesn't hurt to mention them again. So first is it's good if you can do some practice of meditation every day, even if it's just a short time. And if you can't manage every day, try to at least do it a few times a week so that you keep up the momentum. It's similar with learning a, musical instrument or learning some sport. It's good to keep practicing, yeah, to keep yourself in shape. But if you let a long period of time go by and without practicing, then it's, you kind of fall back in your practice and you have to maybe even start over from the beginning. So it's good to keep up some regular practice, at least a few times a week. And it's also good, number 2, is if you can make a place in your home where you can meditate. Some people may have a whole room that they devote to their meditation practice. If you don't have a room, you could just have a specific place where you can put a meditation seat. And you could also have some other things, like you could have an altar with some objects like image of Buddha, pictures of teachers that inspire you, and so on. And it's good to keep practicing in that same place because then, I don't know, it's like a certain energy will build up in that place that makes it easier for you to get into a meditative state of mind when you go there and sit there, rather than just, I mean, you can meditate anywhere. Meditation is something that can be done anywhere, but especially in the beginning when we're still learning how to do it, then it's good to have a dedicated space, and a conducive space that will help you get into a meditative state of mind, and mm, use that place for your practice. And it's also good to keep it clean and tidy. Um, yeah, having a mess, having, a lot of dirty clothes or other things, dirty dishes lying around. Yeah, dirt and mess are not helpful for getting into a good state of mind. So it's good to keep it clean and tidy, and that will help your mind be in a better state when you meditate. And then number three, I think I mentioned already, good in the beginning, especially to just do short sessions, even 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be a long period of time. And do a simple practice. Later, as you get more experience, you can have longer sessions and you can do more complex practices. But in the beginning, especially, do things that are relatively simple. And yeah, if you try to do something that's too complex or too advanced, you might have a lot of difficulties and then become discouraged and maybe even give up. Whereas if you do simple practices that you can get a taste of, you can get a taste of, oh, a nice peaceful state of mind, a good state of mind, then that will inspire you, will give you energy to keep going and keep practicing. And number four, I think I may have spoken about this before, but it's really important. Expectations. Watch out for expectations. We can't really avoid them. I think it's just a natural activity of our mind that whenever we do something, we expect to have good experiences. We want happiness, we want peace, we want to feel good, we want good things to happen. And so it's hard to avoid that. But if our attitude is involved with grasping, if we have a strong grasping attitude, an attached attitude to certain outcomes, certain expectations, then that becomes detrimental, because then if we don't get what we expected within the time frame we expected, then we can get upset, we can get discouraged, we can reject the whole thing, give up the whole thing, and stop practicing. So Lama Yeshe used to tell us, don't have any expectations when you meditate. Easier said than done, but at least try. Try to avoid expectations. Try to just do it. Just think, okay, meditation is a good thing to do. I'm going to do it. And try not to have these ideas. I want this to happen in a certain period of time, and then, yeah, it's almost like you're sitting there waiting for this experience to happen, this, yeah, insight or wonderful experience or vision or whatever. So if you do notice that happening in your mind, really try to let go of it, put it aside. Because expectations actually, I mean, there are good things that come from the practice of meditation. There are good results. But if we have expectations, expectations really come from ego, self-centeredness, attachment, grasping. So if we're letting ourselves be influenced by those aspects of our mind, then we're actually creating blocks. We're kind of putting up roadblocks in our practice so that we won't be able to get the beneficial results that would come otherwise. So if we can let go of expectation, let go of our ego and our selfishness and our attachments, and just do it, especially doing it with a altruistic intention. I want to benefit others. May this meditation help me benefit others. So really try to put aside the self, the ego, and think about others. Then there's a greater chance of getting the good results of meditation. And another thing we have to look out for is comparing oneself with others. That's really deadly. If if you have a friend that's meditating and they may talk to you about their meditation and talk about what's happening with them and their meditation, and you're not having those experiences yourself, then you may feel, oh, there's something wrong with me. You may have jealousy of them. So everyone is different. It's important to understand that each person is different. Our minds are different. Our karma is different. Our abilities are different. And so if someone else is having nice experiences, nice results in their meditation, don't be jealous. Don't feel bad that that's not happening to you. Instead, rejoice. Feel how wonderful that they're having those experiences. I hope one day I will have them as well, but try not to let yourself get afflicted about that. Then, number 5, get advice from teachers or more experienced students if you encounter difficulties or strange experiences. So it's good to keep in touch with people who have been meditating for a while, whether they're teachers or they're experienced practitioners. So you have someone to go to if you're having problems, difficulties, questions. Yeah. And also just to have that inspiration, to have that person close to you that has been practicing and can give you encouragement and inspiration to keep practicing yourself. And then finally, remain simple, not showy. So meditation is really about our mind, changing our mind. We don't have to make big changes in our life, in our appearance. We don't have to wear special clothes or have Tibetan, prayer beads hanging around your neck and so on and so. So we can just remain as usual, dress as usual, make changes inside your mind. We're trying to, become more positive, more constructive, more beneficial, more wise, and so on, and more ethical. We're trying to, make positive changes in our mind, but we can do that without advertising, without showing off what we're doing. And it's also better not to talk about your meditation with people unless they are interested. If someone is interested, or maybe if you have friends who are meditating themselves, it's fine to talk about your practice with them, but not to talk about it with just anyone in any situation, because that can cause your whatever good energy you have, whatever insights you may have, to kind of get lost, get dissipated. So it's better to keep it kind of private. And that doesn't mean keeping it like top secret. I'm not going to talk to anybody about this, but just don't show off. Don't be a show off. Just keep it simple. So those are some things I thought of. There's probably a lot more as well, but this course is really just for kind of first step in the practice, although I'm sure some of you have been practicing for a while. So I do hope. Oh, Cynthia?
Hi, Venerable. Just a quick question, hopefully clarification. The when we say afflictions arise, is that equivalent to saying karma ripens, and I'm happy to wait until the karma chapter for details, but I just maybe a quick clarification. Thank you.
Well, it's not necessarily the same. I mean, we talk about karma and afflictions. Karma and afflictions are not the same thing. So afflictions are mental factors. Afflictions are mental factors, and they are mental factors that cause the mind to be disturbed, unpeaceful, and they can motivate karma. Okay, so for example, getting angry, that's anger is an affliction. So when we get angry and then we may act out our anger, speaking harsh words or even doing something causing harm to somebody. So an affliction has arisen in the mind and then we got caught up in it and then acted it out and created karma under the influence of that affliction. So they're not exactly the same. They're connected, but and they both lead to suffering and problems. But yeah, so there we do talk about seeds of afflictions, yeah, that cause afflictions to arise. But then there's also karmic seeds. So when we do an act of a karmic action, that will leave a seed in the mind, and that seed ripens more as some sort of experience that we have, like a good experience or a bad experience, depending on what kind of karma it was. So we do, I mean, both have their seeds, karmic seeds and seeds of afflictions, but they come about in different ways and they also ripen in different ways.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for joining this course. I do hope it's been beneficial for you, that you've learned something that you can use in your life and your practice, your spiritual practice. Um, so I think meditation is something really wonderful, really precious. I'm happy to, talk about it, share what I've learned with others, and hope they will be inspired to practice and keep going. Thank you.
Thank you.